Section 24 of the World's Famous Orations, Volume 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The World's Famous Orations, Volume 2. To His Friends When Dying, by Germanicus, 19 A.D. Begin footnote. Delivered in Antioch in 19 A.D. Reported by Tacitus. The Revised Oxford Translation. End of footnote. If I were dying in the course of nature, I should have just cause of complaint against the gods, for hurrying me from my parents, my children, and my country, by a premature departure in the vigor of youth. But cut short in my career, as I am now, by the nefarious arts of Piso and Plancina, my dying prayer, which I deposit in your breasts, is that you would tell my father and my brother, with what persecutions mangled, with what treachery circumvented, I end a life of consummate misery by a death the most revolting. Those who felt an interest in my prospects, or were connected with me by blood, nay, even those who envied me while I lived, will weep at the fate of him who, once renowned, and the survivor of so many wars, hath fallen by the dark devices of a woman. You will have an opportunity of complaining to the Senate and invoking the laws. To show respect for the dead with idle wailings is not the principal office of friends. It is to remember his dying wishes, to fulfill his last injunctions. Even strangers will lament Germanicus. You will avenge me, if it was myself and not my fortune that you caressed. Show the people of Rome my wife, the granddaughter of Augustus. Remind them of our 6 children. Compassion will wait on those who bring such charges, and the accused, if they pretend iniquitous mandates, will not be believed, or, if believed, not pardoned. End of section 24. Recording by Owen Cook in Potawatomi, ceded land.
Section 25 of The World's Famous Orations, Volume 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Bill Mosley, Llano County, Texas, USA. The World's Famous Orations, Volume 2. Seneca. To Nero when in disfavor. 62 A.D. Born about 4 B.C., died in 65 A.D., senator under Caligula, banished by Claudius, and then recalled to undertake the education of Nero, at whose accession he virtually obtained direction of the government in cooperation with Burrus. Charged with complicity in the conspiracy of Piso, he committed suicide in obedience to the order of Nero. Delivered in Rome, reported by Tacitus, the Revised Oxford Translation. This is the 14th year, Caesar, since I was summoned to train you for your high destiny, and the 8th since your advancement to the empire. During the intervening period, you have showered such honors and riches upon me that nothing is wanting to complete my felicity but the capacity to use them with moderation. I shall quote great examples, such as are adapted not to my station and fortune, but to yours. Augustus, from whom you are the 4th in descent, granted to Marcus Agrippa leave to retreat to Mytilene, and to Caius Maecenas he allowed, even in Rome itself, a retirement as complete as in any foreign country. The former, his companion in the wars, the other, long harassed at Rome with manifold occupations and public cares, both received rewards ample indeed, but proportioned to their services. For myself, what other claims upon your munificence have I been able to advance, except my literary attainments, nursed, so to speak, in the shades of retirement, and which have been rendered famous because I am believed to have assisted your early years in the acquisition of learning. A glorious reward for such a service! But you encompassed me with boundless favors, unnumbered riches, so that when I ruminate upon my situation, as I often do, I say to myself, can it be that I, the son of a knight, the native of a province, am ranked now among the chief men of Rome? Seneca's birthplace was Corduba, now Cordoba, Spain. Has my upstart name acquired splendor among the nobles of the land, and men who glory in a long line of honored ancestors? Where, then, is that philosophic spirit which professed to be satisfied with scanty supplies? Is it employed in adorning such gardens as these, in pacing majestically through these suburban retreats? Does it abound in estates so extensive as these, and in such immense sums put out at interest? One plea only occurs to my thoughts, that it becomes not me to oppose your bounties. But both of us have now filled up our measure. You of all that the bounty of a prince could confer upon his friend, I of all that a friend could accept from the bounty of his prince. Every addition can only furnish fresh materials for envy, which, indeed, like all other earthly things, lies prostrate beneath your towering greatness, but weighs heavily on me. I require assistance. Thus, in the same manner as were I weary and faint with the toils of a warfare or a journey, I should implore indulgence, so in this journey of life, old as I am and unequal even to the lightest cares, since I am unable longer to sustain the weight of my own riches, I seek protection. Order your own stewards to undertake the direction of my fortune, and to annex it to your own, nor shall I by this plunge myself into poverty, but having surrendered those things by whose splendor I am exposed to the assaults of envy, all the time which is set apart for the care of gardens and villas, I shall apply once more to the cultivation of my mind. To you vigor remains more than enough, and the possession of imperial power established during so many years. We, your friends, who are more advanced in years, may take our turn of repose. This too will redound to your glory, that you had elevated to the highest posts those who could put up with a humble condition. End of section 25. Recording by Bill Mosley, Llano County, Texas, USA.
Section number 26 of the World's Famous Orations, Volume 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jason in Panama. The World's Famous Orations, Volume 2. On Becoming Emperor, by Otho. 1. On Becoming Emperor, 69 A.D. Footnote. Delivered to his soldiers in camp in northern Italy in 69 A.D. Reported by Tacitus. The Revised Oxford Translation. End of footnote. Born in 32 A.D., died in 69. An associate of Nero, who made him governor of Lusitania, Portugal. Conspired for the overthrow of Galba, and after being proclaimed emperor, was himself overthrown by Vitellius, whereupon he committed suicide. In what character I now address you I am unable to declare. A private man I cannot call myself, for you have bestowed upon me the title of prince. Nor can I style myself a prince, while another is still in possession of the sovereign power. In what description you yourselves are to be classed is to me a matter of doubt, and must remain so, till the question is decided whether you have in your camp the Emperor of Rome or a public enemy. Hear ye how the same voice that demands vengeance on me calls for your destruction? so evident is it that we can neither die nor live otherwise than together. Such is the humanity of Galba. Perhaps he has already pronounced our doom, since, without a request, of his own free will, he could consign to the sword so many thousand innocent soldiers. My heart recoils with horror when I reflect on the disastrous day on which he made his public entry into the city, and on that his only victory, when, after receiving the submission of the suppliant soldiers, he ordered the whole body to be decimated in the view of the people. Under these auspices he entered the city of Rome, and what has been since the glory of his reign? Obultronius Sabinus and Cornelius Marcellus have been murdered in Spain, Betus Chilo in Gaul, Fontius Capito in Germany, and Claudius Macer in Africa. Add to these Cingonius Varro, butchered on his march, Turpilianus in the heart of the city, and Nymphidius in the camp. Is there a province, is there in any part of the empire a single camp which he has not defiled with blood, or, as he will tell you, reformed and amended? What all good men call a deed of barbarity passes with him for a correction of abuses, while under specious names he confounds the nature of things, calls cruelty justice, avarice economy, and massacre military discipline. Since the death of Nero, not more than 7 months have elapsed, and in that time, Icelus, his freedman, has amassed by plunder more enormous wealth than the Polycleti, the Vatinii, the Helii were able to do. Even Titus Vinius, if he had seized the empire, would not have oppressed us with such rapacity, such wanton barbarity. As it is, he at once tramples upon us as his own subjects, and pours scorn upon us as though we were another's. His house alone contains wealth sufficient to discharge the donative which is never forthcoming, and is daily cast in your teeth. And that you might despair of improvement under the successor even of Galba, he has recalled from banishment a man, in his temper dark and gloomy, hardened in avarice, whom he judged the counterpart of himself. You remember, my fellow soldiers, the day on which that adoption was made, a day deformed with storms and tempests, when the warring elements announced the awful displeasure of the gods. The Senate and the people are now of one mind. They depend upon your valor. It is your generous ardor that must give vigor to our honorable enterprise. Without your aid the best designs must prove abortive. It is not to a war, nor even to danger, that I am now to conduct you. The armies of Rome are on our side. The single cohort remaining with Galba is composed of citizens, not of soldiers, and they do not stand forth in his defense, they detain him as their prisoner. When they see you advancing in firm array, when my signal is given, the only struggle will be, who may charge my gratitude with the heaviest debt. There is no place for delay in a project which cannot be applauded unless it be gone through with successfully. End of section number 26. Section 27 of the World's Famous Orations, Volume 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jason in Panama. The World's Famous Orations, Volume 2. To His Soldiers in Rome by Otho. 2. To his soldiers in Rome, 69 A.D. Footnote. Delivered in camp at or near Rome in 69 A.D. after the overthrow of Galba. Vitellius had already weakened the position of Otho and was descending from Germany with his army. End of footnote. I come not now, my fellow soldiers, to excite your affection for me. In the late tumult it was courage by exhortation. Of both, to your honor be it spoken, you have enough and to spare. But I come to request that you would moderate the impetuosity of your courage, and put limits to your affection for me. In the late tumult it was not the love of plunder, nor ill will that impelled you, motives from which discord and mutiny have broken out in various armies, nor was it the fear of danger, or so much as a wish to shrink from your duty. It was your excessive regard for me which gave you up to the impulse of passion rather than to prudence, for where judgment does not direct, it often happens that the most honorable motives of action produce fatal results. We are going forth to a war. And must all intelligence be communicated to the army? Must every secret be disclosed? And must councils of war be held in a public assembly of the soldiers? Does the reason of things and the opportunity, which must be seized at once or lost forever, allow such a mode of proceeding? It is as fitting that the soldier should be ignorant of some things, as that he should know others. The authority of generals, and the strictness of discipline, are such, that even the tribunes and the centurions must often receive their orders without a reason assigned. If every subaltern may discuss the reasons of his orders, discipline is at an end, and the authority of the commander falls to the ground. And shall the soldier, even at such a juncture, seize his arms in the dead of the night? Shall one or two drunken men (in last night's frenzy I do not believe there were more) imbrue their hands in the blood of a centurion and a tribune, and rush into the pavilion of their general? You, my fellow soldiers, have transgressed thus in your zeal for me. But amid that general hurry and confusion, and in the gloom of midnight darkness, an opportunity might have been given for an attack on me. Give Vitellius and his satellites the power of choosing, and what greater curse could they invoke? What calamity could they call down upon us, so much to be dreaded, as a turbulent and factious spirit, and all the evils of discord and sedition? That the soldier should refuse to obey his centurion, the centurion his tribune, and that hence the cavalry and the foot soldiers, without order or distinction, should rush into destruction. It is implicit obedience rather than wrangling about orders that gives to military operations their energy. The army that shows itself in time of peace the most quiet and orderly is sure to be the most formidable in the day of battle. Let it be yours to arm in the cause of your country, and to face the enemy with heroic valor, and leave to me the direction and guidance of your courage. The guilt of last night extends to a few only; two only shall expiate the offense. And you, the rest, bury in oblivion the horrors of that shameful tumult, and may no other army hear those dreadful imprecations uttered against a Roman Senate. That venerable body, the head of the empire, and the ornaments of all the provinces, not even those Germans whom, above all others, Vitellius is exciting against us, would dare to demand for punishment. And could any of the sons of Italy, and the genuine youth of Rome demand for blood and slaughter an order by whose splendor and renown we dazzle the low and obscure party of Vitellius? Some states, it is true, have been induced to join his standard. He has the appearance of an army, but the Senate is on our side. The Commonwealth is with us. Our enemies are the enemies of Rome. And when I mention Rome, do you imagine that it consists in walls and buildings and a pile of stones? Those mute and senseless edifices may molder away and rise again, but the stability of empire, the peace of nations, your fate and mine are established on the safety of the Senate. Romulus, the father and founder of the city, instituted with solemn auspices that sacred order. From that time till the establishment of the Caesars, it has been preserved inviolate. And as we received it from our ancestors, let us transmit it to our posterity. For as from the people at large the Senate is supplied, so from the Senate you derive your princes. End of section 27. Section number 28 of World's Famous Orations, Volume 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jason in Panama. The World's Famous Orations, Volume 2. To His Soldiers Before Committing Suicide, by Otho. To his soldiers before committing suicide, 69 A.D. To expose the further perils such spirit and such virtue as you now display, would, I deem, be paying too costly a price for my life. The more brilliant the prospects which you hold out to me, were I disposed to live, the more glorious will be my death. I and fortune have made trial of each other, for what length of time is not material, but the felicity which does not promise to last, it is more difficult to enjoy with moderation. Vitellius began the civil war, and he originated our contest for the princedom. It shall be mine to establish a precedent by preventing a second battle for it. But let this posterity judge of Otho. Vitellius shall be blessed with his brother, his wife, and children. I want no revenge, nor consolations. Others have held to sovereign power longer. None has resigned it with equal fortitude. Shall I again suffer so many of the Roman youth, so many gallant armies to be laid low, and cut off from the commonwealth? Let this resolution of yours to die for me, should it be necessary, attend me in my departure, but live on yourselves. Neither let me long obstruct your safety, nor do you retard the proof of my constancy. To descant largely upon our last moments is the act of a dastard spirit. Hold it as an eminent proof of the fixedness of my purpose, that I complain of no man, for to arraign or gods or men is the part of one who fain would live. Footnote. Of Otho's funeral, Tacitus says, he was borne on the shoulders of the Praetorian soldiers, who kissed his hands and his wound amid tears and praises. Some of the soldiers slew themselves at the funeral pile, not from any consciousness of guilt, nor from fear, but in emulation of the bright example of their prince, and to show their affection. At Bedriacum, Placentia, and other camps, numbers of every rank adopted to that mode of death. A sepulchre was raised to the memory of Otho, of ordinary structure, but likely to endure. In a note to Mr. Young's translation, we are reminded that Plutarch visited Otho's tomb at Brixellum, now Brescello, on the river Po. Its materials have long since molded away, but the epitaph, written by Martial, still lives. The poet, while admitting that Otho led a dissolute life, adds that in his end he was not inferior to Cato. Quum dubitaret ad hoc belli civilis Ennio, fortisan et possit vincere mollis ortho, damavit multo staturum sanguine martem, et fodit certa pectora nada manu. Sit Cato dum vivit, sane vel Caesar major, dum moritur numquid major Othon fuit. Book 6, 32. End of section 28.
Section 29 of the World's Famous Orations, Volume 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The World's Famous Orations, Volume 2. To His Army in Scotland, by Agricola. Footnote: delivered in 84 A.D. on the eve of the Battle of the Grampian Hills. Reported by Tacitus. The Revised Oxford Translation. End footnote. 84 A.D. Born in 37 A.D., died in 93. Father-in-law of Tacitus, served in many campaigns in Britain and France, carrying the Roman conquest as far as the northern boundary of Perth and Argyll. It is now the 8th year, my fellow soldiers, in which, under the high auspices of the Roman Empire, by your valor and perseverance, you have been conquering Britain. In so many expeditions, in so many battles, whether you have been required to exert your courage against the enemy, or your patient labors against the very nature of the country, neither have I been dissatisfied with my soldiers, nor you with your general. In this mutual confidence we have proceeded beyond the limits of former commanders and former armies, and are now become acquainted with the extremity of the island, not by uncertain rumour, but by actual possession with our arms and encampments. Britain is discovered and subdued. How often on a march, when embarrassed with mountains, bogs, and rivers, have I heard the bravest among you exclaim, "When shall we descry the enemy? When shall we be led to the field of battle?" At length they are unharboured from their retreats. Your wishes and your valour have now free scope, and every circumstance is equally propitious to the victor and ruinous to the vanquished. For the greater our glory in having marched over vast tracts of land, penetrated forests, and crossed arms of the sea while advancing toward the foe, the greater will be our danger and difficulty if we should attempt a retreat. We are inferior to our enemies in knowledge of the country, and less able to command supplies of provision, but we have arms in our hand, and in these we have everything. For myself, it has long been my principle that a retiring general or army is never safe. Not only, then, are we to reflect that death with honour is preferable to life with ignominy, but to remember that security and glory are seated in the same place. Even to fall in this extremest verge of earth and of nature cannot be thought an inglorious fate. If unknown nations or untried troops were drawn up against you, I would exhort you from the example of other armies. At present, recollect your own honours, question your own eyes. These are they who, the last year, attacking by surprise a single legion in the obscurity of the night, were put to flight by a shout, the greatest fugitives of all the Britons, and therefore the longest survivors. As in penetrating woods and thickets, the fiercest animals boldly rush on the hunters, while the weak and timorous fly at their very noise, so the bravest of the Britons have long since fallen. The remaining number consists solely of the cowardly and spiritless, whom you see at length within your reach, not because they have stood their ground, but because they are overtaken. Torpid with fear, their bodies are fixed and chained down in yonder field, which to you will speedily be the scene of a glorious and memorable victory. Here bring your toils and services to a conclusion. Close a struggle of 50 years. Footnote: the expedition of Claudius into Britain occurred in the year of Rome 796, from which to the period of this engagement of the Grampian Hills 42 years had elapsed. End footnote. With one great day, and convince your countrymen that to the army ought not to be imputed either the protraction of the war or the causes of rebellion. Footnote: Tacitus remarks that, quote, "While Agricola was yet speaking, the ardour of the soldiers declared itself, and as soon as he had finished, they burst forth into cheerful acclamations, and instantly flew to arms. Thus eager and impetuous, he formed them, so that the centre was occupied by the auxiliary infantry, in number 8,000, and 8,000 horse were spread in the wings." End quote. End footnote. End of section 29. Recording by Owen Cook in Potawatomi ceded land. End of the World's Famous Orations, Volume 2, edited by William Jennings Bryan and Francis Whiting Halsey.